Okay, hi! My name is Jay. This is the Hyperfixation Corner. Well, this is not the Hyperfixation Corner. This is the Nest, which is a very cool spot in my friend's apartment where I am staying, babysitting their guinea pigs. Insert footage here. I hope that it's okay that I'm using their spot as a background today, but I needed to film a video and I'm here house sitting. So I hope they're okay with this. I'm gonna be sitting here crocheting, but don't worry, it's not another crochet video. I know. I think 2 in a row would be kind of a lot for you guys. That's fair. Have no fear, today's video is not a second crochet video in a row. It is a video about a subject that is very near and dear to my heart. Movies. Movies that inspired me as a child to go to film school. Now, I want to say that my direct goal in mind as a child of maybe, in some of these stories, 4, 5, 6, was not go to film school. Maybe it wasn't that logical, but that was what ended up, happening with those thoughts and feelings. I guess more movies that really awe-inspired me as a kid that, when I think about, why I go to film school, I think about these movies and the fact that they had such a huge impact on me as a kid. Now, are these the only movies that inspired me to go to film school? No, there are plenty of adult movies and movies from my adulthood that have inspired me and continue to inspire me to go to film school. I got to watch Everything Everywhere All at Once for free for my film class. And that was one of those movies that I was like, yep, this is why I do this, because it was an incredible movie. It was an incredible movie, and it just made me remember why I do this, and it's so amazing to have new movies constantly coming out that inspire me and make me feel that awe and passion and joy all over again. But sometimes you have to go back to where it all started, and for me, it kind of all started with Narnia. It all started with Narnia, specifically the first movie, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I liked the other movies, but The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe specifically has a very meaningful place in my heart. I think a lot of us really liked that movie as a kid. I mean, and what's not to like? As an adult, I think I can critically see a lot of the flaws in the framing of the story and just the narrative in general. And all the Jesus imagery makes me a lot more uncomfortable now that I'm an adult. But that's just C.S. Lewis for you. As a kid, I didn't care about any of that. I cared about the fact that this world looked so completely different from our own. I can't remember the first time I watched this movie. My best guess... Okay, sorry, my food's on the way. My best guess is that I was between the ages of 4 and 7 when I first saw this movie. And I think it was first shown to me, you know what? I think it was around 5. Because it was first shown to me by my grandma. She had this big binder full of CDs. And there were so many in there. And Narnia was one of them. Another one was that, animated, parody of the Little Red Riding Hood movie, Hoodwinked. That movie, I wouldn't say it inspired me to go to film school, but it did leave quite an impression on me, and I was really into it. Anyways, sorry, I'm remembering movies as we're talking about this, and I want to make sure that I add them to the list so that, okay. So I don't remember watching it for the first time exactly, but I do remember that when I often watched it, I had the feeling of, how did they do this? How did they film this? Because that man doesn't have real legs. And what? Huh? And I didn't understand what CGI was. And I should look into it. I don't know if Mr. Tumnus, the actor who played Mr. Tumnus, is in some sort of prosthetic, or if it's CGI, or if it's a combination of both. For the era, I would guess it's some sort of prosthetic, either around his legs or that he inserted his legs into. And the lion was talking, and it was just, how did they do it all? That was my big question. But also, that was only my question afterwards, because during I was enthralled. I was really sucked into this world of this little girl going into this wardrobe. I wanted it so bad. And we're not going to get into that part of it because that just is, some people have a sad childhood things. But it truly just inspired this wonder in me, and it helped me fall into this world. And I had discovered that feeling with books before, but it was new with movies and like TV. It really sucked me in, and I wanted to looking back now, I want to like recreate that feeling. That's one of the reasons that I'm in film school, is to recreate that feeling for other people. So in a very similar vein is Lord of the Rings. I love Lord of the Rings. At the time, when I was a kid, my dad showed them to me as a really young kid in the early 2000s as they were coming out, and I kind of immediately fell in love with them. The scale and size of them were nothing I'd ever seen before in a movie. Nothing that any of us had really ever seen before in a movie. And it was just incredible. It was just incredible. That was another one that made me go, how? But I was so lost in the visual appeal. I'm not gonna lie. The story of Lord of the Rings went completely over my head for a really long time. I would say not until I was in 4th or 5th grade and read the books did I understand the story of the movies. But, I understood sort of. But even then, the scale of it all, the wonder of it all, the attention to detail, the costuming, it was so submersive. It was so easy to sink yourself into the world of the Lord of the Rings, even as a young kid. It left such strong impressions on me, and to the point where every time my dad was watching it in the living room, I would intentionally come join him because I remembered how much I liked watching it the previous time we had watched it together. And as this appreciation and love only grew more and more as I got older and older, and I read the books and I started to understand the story, and then I started to learn about film, and I started to learn about how it was made and watch the behind the scenes videos. And the behind the scenes, if you have not seen the behind the scenes videos of the original Lord of the Rings movies, I highly, highly urge you to go watch them, because wow, that is passion. That is passion, and that is love, and that is I told my friend who suggested this video to me that I was gonna cry while making it. Oh, and
you went back for it.
I did.
You went back for it?
I tried so hard.
Oh.
I thought literally, okay, I was literally standing, hand on the doorknob, turned back. Oh, hey, I need the keys. I can't get locked out. Okay, hi. It's many hours later, and I was locked out of the apartment. I have been saved and it's fine, but it's many hours later. I think I was in the middle of talking about Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is so well-rounded as a film. Every aspect of it is there and on point, because the passion is there and on point for every person in the film. If you do watch the behind-the-scenes videos, you'll see that, they talk about how they talk about Viggo Mortensen a lot. He's just really the star of Lord of the Rings in a way, because of just how powerful his acting performance was. But one of the things they talk about in the behind the scenes making of videos is how up until the day of filming, they had a different person for Viggo Mortensen. I can't remember who it is. It's some high bill, or at the time more famous actor. Viggo Mortensen was just some guy. They had someone completely different, and he didn't want to do the choreography, he didn't want to learn how to fight with a sword, he didn't want to ride a horse, he didn't want to do any of this. And the cast and the crew and Peter Jackson, the director, were just like, no, this is not the energy. And that was absolutely the right call to make, because can you imagine Lord of the Rings without Viggo Mortensen? one of the things that made his role so memorable. We all always have that, meme, that fun fact about like, oh, hey, that moment with the helmet where he kicked it and he actually broke his toe, and we all like to hee hee ha ha about it. Can you imagine if that wasn't in the film? It would be a completely different film. Is that real? Is that actually who it was supposed to be?
I think it's real.
It was supposed to be Nicolas Cage? Is that Nicolas Cage?
That's Nicolas Cage. Or whoever the fuck this guy is. I don't know who that is.
Can I show them?
Yeah.
Who? Stuart Townsend. Oh, okay. Yeah, I know who Stuart Townsend is. That's not Aragorn. I think maybe the Nicolas Cage one is an edit. Oh yeah, and so they replaced him last minute with Viggo Mortensen. And Viggo Mortensen was so passionate. He learned all the choreography very passionately. He really got into sword fighting. I think he was afraid of horses at first and overcame that fear for this role. That's badass as hell. And that is not, like, that is passion. That is dedication for the craft. And not to start drama, but Viggo Mortensen is very famously not associated with the new Hobbit series because he does not like the lack of passion in the Hobbit series. He feels that it is very much just a cash grab, and that he was already having friction with Peter Jackson towards the end of the Lord of the Rings series because Peter Jackson was starting to rely really heavily on CGI, and Viggo Mortensen didn't like that. Lord of the Rings is kind of the one that keeps on giving for me. Because obviously all of that was not apparent to me as a young child watching this movie. As a young child watching this movie, it was just awe at how wondrous it all was. And when I got a little bit older, it was these making of videos. The learning how, the things that I had been so questioning about all these other movies that I've talked about, how they did it, how they made it seem so otherworldly, from the costuming to the sound to the editing. They cover all of it. It's incredible. And at each stage of my life, at each stage of film interest, there has been something new for me to learn about Lord of the Rings and the production about Lord of the Rings. So, you know what? Out of all the movies on this list, this is actually the one that made me go to film school. The other ones were things that inspired me or woke my sense of creativity or gave me something to, like, hold on to in a creative way. But Lord of the Rings is the reason, And I will make many, many other videos about Lord of the Rings, I'm sure. But we have to move on to other things because I've already technically spent 4 hours on Lord of the Rings. So I feel that as a trans person who grew up in a certain era, I can't make this video about, like, films that inspired me in my childhood to become, like, and go to film school without talking about Harry Potter. Now, before we get all up in arms, let me just set the stage for you, okay? I am 7 years old. I have this best friend who lives across the street, and they're a few years older than me, and I think they are the coolest person in the whole entire world. They're, like, my best friend. I worship the ground they walk on. In retrospect, definitely had a crush on them. Definitely was my gay awakening. One of those kind of things. And they are really, really, really into Harry Potter because this is the era. It's like 2010-ish to 2012, maybe. It's the right era for Harry Potter. Even though it was mostly millennials, older Gen Z did get in on the Harry Potter game. And this friend, really loved Harry Potter. It was their favorite thing in the world. They would talk about it all the time. And so, of course, me being, like, absolutely in love with this friend, I also had to like Harry Potter. They gave me their personal hardcover set of Harry Potter, the entire set, for free. Just gave it to me.
and I read the whole thing in less than 3 months. As a young kid who was bullied, adopted, and in my own sense, living in a closet, I very much related to the character of Harry Potter. I don't anymore. He's an annoying jock cop, and that's... Even as a kid, I was always like, why do you have to become a cop, though? That's super annoying.
With these other things, they were awe-inspiring. They made me ask, how did they do this? How did they make it happen? But Harry Potter connected me to a character. It made me care about these people. And again, I want you to remember that I was between the ages of like 10 and 12. The movies at the time were so cool to me. The world seemed so intricate and big. It was so hard to me to imagine how someone could just think of all those things. And obviously I know more about how writing works now, and about how specifically Joanne's writing process works. I understand now how she made this world and how they made it come to life in Harry Potter and, like, the movies. It was the caring of the characters in Harry Potter that really got tween-age me. Is tween-age a thing? Yeah, I was a tweenager. Now, obviously, I'm an adult, and I can recognize a few things. First of all, the Harry Potter books and movies both are flawed as, if we are going to talk about them as pieces of art outside of their creator, they are entertaining pieces of media, but they are heavily flawed as a fantasy series. And if you know a lot about, like, UK racism and UK classism, it becomes really glaring just how low Miss Joanne thinks of some certain groups of people in these books, specifically the Black characters and the Asian characters and the Irish characters, and just, like, anyone that she deems to be... So now on those levels it's kind of unwatchable because it's like, ugh, I can see all the icky racism now. But also, we all know that Miss Joanne has spent now millions of her dollars crusading against the rights of trans people. And that's super fucking awful and terrible. I tried to stick with her when it first started happening. I really did, because I was a big fan. Despite the fact that I was, at the time she started going down the transphobic pipeline, despite the fact that I was starting to already see the flaws in Harry Potter, I didn't try to defend her, but I thought that maybe she could still turn around and make a change. You know, for like the first year or so. Maybe a little bit after that. But the farther and farther she has gone down this transphobic pipeline, the more and more of her money that she has given to these causes, the more she has created this echo chamber of TERFs for herself, the more disgusting and abhorrent of a person that she has become, the more driven I am to complete film school, because this was devastating to me as a queer trans person, and maybe some of you will think that I took this too personally, and if you think that, that is fine, but I am a highly emotional and sentimental person, and I am not the only highly emotional, sentimental person who is also queer and trans that took it very personally that she wrote this story about an outcast and then turned around and used her money to A, betray a lot of the fans of her books, and B, marginalize an outcast group of people. I am someone that loves to do things out of spite. That's maybe not a healthy mindset sometimes, but I was truly, genuinely heartbroken when I realized that there would be no turning back for Joanne, that she was just truly that kind of person. She was racist and transphobic and sexist, because that's how TERFs always are. They're always like, I love women, women's rights, and then they're always the most sexist person in the entire room. Anyways, that's a whole other rant. And I just feel that I want to help be part of making things that can make people feel at that age like I did, without the later heartbreak and guilt of their project being attached to a fucking racist TERF, you know?
Like, it was just so heartbreaking that so many queer people had to lose that and had to separate it from their identity. And every film class I take, every step I get closer to influencing media, every time I go into work at my, like, new marketing job with a indie film studio that I've just started working with, I think a little bit about J.K. Rowling and how much she inspired me, and how, because of her, there is just gonna be one more trans story out there. Because of you, Miss Joanne, you inspired me not only to go to film school, but also to be a writer of books. And they're going to be very, very gay, very, very trans books. And they're going to inspire a lot of people to be very, very gay and very, very trans. And you're going to hate every single fucking one of them. And then I will know peace. When Joanne is reading one of my books and watching one of my movies, clutching her fucking pearls and having a heart attack, that is when I will be satisfied. So Harry Potter is the outlier in this list of movies because it was something that I once loved and is now something that drives me purely out of spite. Thank you, Joanne, for being inspiring, and fuck you.
I actually read the Harry Potter books.
Yeah.
And the fifth book, I think. Which one?
The Order of the Phoenix.
No, I think it was the Goblet of Fire, actually.
That's the fourth one.
Yeah.
I proved to you guys that I was a real fan. I still know this shit to this day.
Well, I knew the fifth was. I wasn't trying to see. I was just when. When was he dating Cho? I think it was Goblet of Fire. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like
the whole book.
The arc started in the fourth book. He asked her out in the fourth book, but she was dating Cedric. And then Cedric died at the end of the fourth book, and then he starts dating her in the fifth book. Yeah.
Okay, this is the one I'm talking.
Okay.
The Order of the Phoenix. He just kept complaining about Cho in the book. He was just like, "Man, my girlfriend's being a bitch."
The
whole fucking book.
I remember kind of thinking he was gay, and then he gets with Ginny. And I never really liked that decision. All the relationships in this book feel so fucking forced.
Yeah.
But I also don't... Okay. I don't ship Ron and Hermione because they were toxic for each other. But I also don't really ship Hermione and Harry either. Because, again, I still think Harry is kind of gay.
I think
he just doesn't really like women.
I think for Harry it's either Neville or Luna. Or maybe all three of them.
Yeah, they could have a little...
Technically Harry and,
They could have a little throuple, yeah.
Name?
What's whose name?
Nelson?
Neville?
Neville. Fuck, how did I forget Neville's name? Technically they're the same person. They're both the child of prophecy, so it's...
Is that incest? Is
No,
that prophetic incest?
It's probably closer to masturbation than incest.
Fucking your own twin.
Yeah.
Clone-cest.
Yeah. But it's not that you, like, they...
Can I leave this in the video?
Oh, absolutely. Like, if you're here for it, I'm here for it. But, yeah, no. I think that Luna was as weird as Harry was, because everyone, I was like, oh, Harry Potter, he's the fucking weirdo. He's the kid who's locked in the closet.
Yeah, as a certified weird girl in middle school, I definitely identified with Luna.
Yeah.
Okay, the next thing I'm talking about is Titanic. Can I use the box set as a prop?
Absolutely.
One day I'm gonna...
It had to be 2 VHSs. That's how long this fucking movie is.
One day I'm gonna make a video about all of her dresses, all of her outfits. And that is going to take me so long to make because it's going to be watching the entirety of Titanic, but also pausing it every scene change because she changes outfits pretty much every scene. So if you're ever down for a really, really, really long watch of Titanic, you know just the box set.
I know just the... Fuck.
Okay. I am not even in my own house right now, but this is an item that I own, and I think that this just shows that there is clearly a relationship between being gay and having an intimate relationship with the Titanic, and specifically needing the box set VHS. I shit you not, I also own and display this in my home. This is not mine, but it was sitting displayed over on that shelf, so it is my prop now. So this is a bit of an outlier in this list. A lot of the movies in this list are A, a lot more little kid, because again, I'm talking about when I was a kid, but B, they're very fantasy, they're very sci-fi, they're not really based in reality. The other one that's very based in reality is not, well, actually, no, none of them are any way based in reality, except for Titanic. Except for Titanic. Now, listen. Is it weird for an 8-year-old to be the one in the family that forces their family to watch the very heavy, multiple-hour-long melodrama over and over and over and over again at least once a week for 2 years? Yes. That is weird, but if you consider that I have autism, it's less weird. I was just so entranced. They do everything. They do everything right to draw you in. It is such a perfect story from beginning to end. It is so long, but it does not feel... It doesn't feel that long. It does not feel like How long is the actual runtime? Hold on, come here. What's your runtime? Do you not say on the box? You don't say on the box?
3 hours and 15 minutes.
Oh, okay. Wow, yeah, okay, it does not feel like 3 hours and 15 minutes, but please take note, it came in 2 VHSs. And it's because it's just so well told. In every moment, there is so much information being presented to you, but none of it feels overbearing. They do just enough to keep you entertained, to keep things light until it's not time to keep things light anymore, obviously. And to progress the story along, that even though it's long, and even though it's dense, and even though it's heavy, it doesn't feel stale. It doesn't drag. Long movies have a tendency to drag, because there's just always something that didn't need to be there. But every moment of Titanic needed to be there. And I think I was really fascinated by that as a kid. I think I was also fascinated by the idea that we could make movies out of historical events and, like, the ethical ideas of that, but I didn't have, like, the words for any of that yet. I definitely had a lot of questions. One of the reasons my family hated watching this movie with me was because I had so many questions about it. Like, did this actually happen, and how many people survived, and are they telling the real story, and, like, there's a behind the scenes of the making of this, too, because it was a whole, like, really big deal, and a whole big film innovation, and all this sort of stuff, and yada, 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 and we found out so much about history, and this brings us into that whole, also maybe a history degree thing, because the intersection of film and history and how film lends itself to the way we learn about history is so interesting. And I was always a kid that was interested in history. My family is a big history family. My dad is a history teacher. But Titanic engaged me in history in a way that something hadn't before. And even though it's not entirely factually accurate, it got me asking questions and it got me thinking. And that's something that I very much aspire for in the things that I make now, is how can I make you think just a little bit, you know? Also, as a kid, I did just have a crush on Rose. You know that scene where she steps out of the carriage and she has the big hat, and, like, she looks up and she's got, like, the red lipstick. I think that made me gay. Alright. I've talked about Star Trek a couple times on this channel before, and so I'm gonna need the people who followed me because they're Trekkies to not shoot me for talking about this movie. I want you to remember that I was 9 years old when it came out, and I have a lot of really sentimental 9-year-old feelings attached to it, and also it's not that bad of a movie, and you guys are all stupid and boring, and I hate you.
Sorry, that was intense. So, Star Trek 2009. Listen, I know there are strong feelings about this movie because of the lens flares and the but listen, I don't care. Because, you know what? It's a good Star Trek movie. Even some of the actual Star Trek movies are bad at being Star Trek movies, but this Star Trek movie does what the very first one... What's the name of the first one? Hold on. Okay, Star Trek the Motion Picture is a terrible movie. It is the worst Star Trek movie by far. And I feel like Star Trek 2009 is what Star Trek the Motion Picture wanted to be in a way, but in the opposite direction. I hope you know what I mean. Anyways, I'm done defending myself about liking this movie. There is a scene in this movie. It's pretty early on. They are fighting a battle. And it's getting really intense. And they're about to pull out the big move. And there's about to be this big explosion. And it's chaotic and there's lots of music. And, you know, it's like pew, 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 pew. And big booms and really loud music. And then, you know, it's the moment before. And it just mutes. And everything goes silent. And then they pull out the big guns, it hits, the ship explodes, and all the music comes crashing back in, and 9-year-old me was sitting in the theater, because I saw this in theaters, with chills. With chills. It was so exhilarating. I didn't know a movie could be that exhilarating. I felt like I was there. And it was an awakening moment. It was an awakening moment. And every time I watch that movie, I anticipate that moment now. And it's not like it was when I was 9 years old. Partly because, you know, other movies have done that and some have even done it better. But it was just such a good move. It was just such a good move. And it's so effective. And I admire it so much. And I like watching that movie now because it excites me now, but in such a different way. It excites me an equal amount, but in such a different way. Because now I understand why it excited me so much as a kid. And that, to help my younger self understand why all these movies were so exciting, is the reason that I keep learning all of this shit and keep taking these classes and keep moving forward even when it's like, what the fuck am I gonna do with this degree? Because the little child inside of me needs to understand why it was all so exciting. And Star Trek was just so exciting. And also, it was the first thing that introduced me to the Star Trek series, which is now like one of my main special interests. And Star Trek is like very, very near and dear to my heart, so... Also, it's a little bit sentimental on that level. Okay, I'm asking you specifically, not the camera people. Have you seen Godspell?
No.
I was relying on your Catholicism.
Okay. I wasn't really paying attention, honestly.
Okay. Okay. So, I should preface this by this movie is... about religion. I am not religious. I was when I watched this movie, but I don't think that's why I liked it. This isn't going to be a talk about religion. And if you find this movie disrespectful, I don't know, talk to the 60s. The 60s were a weird fucking time and everyone was on drugs. So Godspell is a movie musical from the 1960s, and it is bizarre. It basically tells the story of... It basically tells the New Testament. From, like, the time that Jesus sets out on his own to the time of his crucifixion. And all of them are played... like, Jesus and all of his disciples are played by, like, wacky 60s-looking people. And it introduced me to the idea that movies were old. That they weren't just something new and happening now while I was a child, but they also happened before I was born. And that there were so many aspects of movies that I had never
considered before. I watched Godspell when I was a little bit older, maybe 10 or 11. So, like, I was old enough to be, like, cognizant. And watching Godspell got me to ask my dad about watching other old movies. And I think had I never watched that movie, I would have never watched a bunch of other old movies that are much better and less weird in 60s, and developed, like, okay, I'm just gonna be, like, highly a film bro for a second. I'm really sorry, but there's just something about old movies and how passionate everyone was while they were making them and how experimental they were. And I really feel like you can't really love movies unless you've at least seen some old movies, because they loved movies so much. They wanted to make them so fucking badly, and it oozes through, like, every inch of so many old, like, silent films and black and white films, and, like, even, like, photos from, like, the very early first days of photography. You can just see that they were so excited to be, unlocking this new technology. I feel like we kind of take for granted that film as a medium is only about 100 years old. As compared to other art mediums, that's nothing. That's a teeny tiny baby as compared to literally every other type of artistic medium on this planet. And we are still so part of that newness. Like, we still get to be part of that excitement. Or at least I still feel like I get to be part of that excitement at the very least. And it was Godspell that led me to that excitement, It unlocked that, like, other people felt that, and that I could feel that too. Okay, the last one, I'm not gonna lie, there's nothing very sentimental here. It didn't even really inspire me to go to film school. I joked earlier about one of them making me gay, but actually it was Elizabeth Swann in Pirates of the Caribbean that made me gay. That scene of her getting out of breath in her corset and then, like, falling, and then he has to, like, rip the it off of her. And then she's in the pirate thing with the sword and the vest. So it didn't really inspire me to go to film school, but it did inspire me to be gay. And yeah, that's a really important part of my character, so I felt like it deserved a special shout out. Also, the CGI in the second Pirates of the Caribbean movie has aged so fucking incredibly, and it's fucking, yeah, my friend over here is nodding in agreement. It's aged so fucking incredibly, and I just want to get us back to a point where we can get CGI like that, because it's, like, we have the technology. It's possible. We just need to pay our CGI artists. These people deserve to be paid and compensated for their time, and they deserve to, like, they deserve to have the time to do their craft. Sorry, this isn't about CG artists' rights, but it is about CG artists' rights. Please respect post-production people. We could not do our jobs without them. And also, don't be mean to your post-production people, because they will fuck up your whole film, and then your whole film has bad sound and lighting, and no one wants to watch it because it has bad sound and lighting, and that just kills it. What was I talking? Anyways, I'm gay. I'm gay. I'm in film school. I'm very broke. It's sometime in the morning. It's been a long day. Goodbye.